Puis vous savez,
And, there's the issue of the general atmosphere. The general atmosphere, the war there, no one likes it. I'm not saying there have been other wars that people liked, but where there was some truth. In this war, there is none. That is to say, neither do you sympathize with the Iranian regime, nor do you sympathize with the Israeli regime, nor with Trump. So, you see all of these people as troublemakers and chaos instigators. And you see that the defense of the Iranians is, well, a national defense. And that, spontaneously, you feel it. You think, well, they're defending their country, they'll fight among themselves later. But for now, so, this indicator that usually works against us. When there's a war, there's a kind of national solidarity. The President of the Republic was relying heavily on this.
There's a growing concern with what's happening, the Strait of Hormuz, etc. So the factors of mobilization and interest in what we are proposing in this municipal election, everything converges, I believe. So that too can lead to an acceleration in the last days. They have understood the national stakes. Exactly.
And, there's the issue of the general atmosphere. The general atmosphere, the war there, no one likes it. I'm not saying there have been other wars that people liked, but where there was some truth. In this war, there is none. That is to say, neither do you sympathize with the Iranian regime, nor do you sympathize with the Israeli regime, nor with Trump. So, you see all of these people as troublemakers and chaos instigators. And you see that the defense of the Iranians is, well, a national defense. And that, spontaneously, you feel it. You think, well, they're defending their country, they'll fight among themselves later. But for now, so, this indicator that usually works against us. When there's a war, there's a kind of national solidarity. The President of the Republic was relying heavily on this.
Now he cannot. Except that from now on, we are the ultimate barrier against Trump and Netanyahu's war in this country. So, people say the party, the political force for peace, is La France Insoumise. That's how it is. I think that, you see, if you had a public meeting last night, people actually react like that.
Yes, about peace, yes, but we did well because we started well before. We didn't wait for there to be war to say war is nothing. It leads nowhere, it solves nothing, because there was still an atmosphere in the air to believe that violence, strength. Look, when a guy like Adel says, yes, international institutions don't matter, we're back to the age of powers. At the time, there were people who thought it was insightful. I found Macron's response ridiculous. I mean, we're in the middle of a war. And the guy says, we made a mistake because we're lacking oil, so we're going to build nuclear plants. You want to tell him, do you know that each nuclear plant is a target? It's precisely the moment, you see. The number of targets are there in this country. Do you think there aren't enough already, that it's not dangerous enough? I found it typical of this man who is incapable of thinking a step ahead. That is, if he really believes what he's saying, that he wants to arm France to blah blah blah, that means he expects to be attacked. If you expect to be attacked, you take measures to reduce the country's level of vulnerability and increase your ability to be, as we now say with a fancy word, resilient, that is, able to resist. So there, instead of handing out useless brochures as they did, they had the opportunity to reframe the question of civil security as popular security. That is, well, a building collapses, someone shot at it, what do we do? No, but sorry, it's a horrible thing to say, but that's what we see. You watch TV, you see Beirut. They didn't ask for anything, they get pelted with little bombs between cities. What do people do? So the resistance of France, it relies, and it's a worldwide lesson, on the capacity of the population to mobilize, which means you cannot invade them because you think you'll suffer 10 times worse than anything you might do. We don't know why. Why do we have a good relationship with a particular country? We don't know why, but it's just like that. The Lebanese, yes, they are our friends. It's in the public mindset. So, when Netanyahu started attacking, well, there are those who believe the rhetoric of Israeli propaganda, and those who have a bit of historical knowledge and a bit of geopolitical knowledge. They knew that from the moment Netanyahu decided to move from "we have the right to defend ourselves" to the systematic destruction of Gaza, which we quickly realized because we saw him do it, we saw that such a level of bombardment had a purpose. We knew that everything else would follow. However, if you will, there is nothing astonishingly new in what he is doing. The Syrian case is the occupation of the Golan Heights. On this plateau there is oil and there is the fleet. The Golan Heights, the point of contention with the Lebanese, is the tip of the plateau because it touches southern Lebanon. So when he enters southern Lebanon, it's the same. We heard the threats against Lebanon from the start of the war in Gaza. When Netanyahu had said, "You Lebanese, keep quiet, otherwise we will come and bring you back to the Stone Age," it was said roughly, I believe the term Stone Age was used. It's a plan of territorial expansion. And, obviously, in this territorial expansion, the question of Iran. It may seem strange, but was one of the limits, since the people who wanted to resist relied, in the midst of all these contradictions, on Iran and the means that Iran provided to others. So that's how it happened. The Americans, it's a country of thugs, made up of everything we rejected from Europe, that ended up there. The first thing they do is a genocide. They kill all the people who are there. Well, these aren't Chinese ways of doing things. So now, Trump has once again worsened his case. The Americans have an attitude. They didn't want to decide from the start who the enemy was, the Russians or the Chinese. So, since there are two different bureaucracies collecting subsidies to wage war, they targeted both at the same time. As a result, they have performed a tour de force, bringing the Russians and the Chinese back together, after they had struggled so much to separate them. So now, a problem for the Chinese, 13% of their oil comes from Iran. So, in your opinion, what are they going to do? They have the choice. They can build an oil pipeline, a pipeline on the Iranian side. It will take time. It's not something that can be done right away. And then, there's another solution, which is to build the pipeline with the Russians as quickly as possible. Because territorial continuity for the Chinese oil supply is with the Russians. So, you go full speed, you do it, you connect, and after that, everyone does what they want. And since they stuck them together, our business gets a little worse every day, without us noticing. But it's extremely Huawei. And since Daddy Trump was there the other night trying to lower oil prices, he announced that he would allow the Russians to export oil again. It's a crazy story since that was the heart of the sanction. And yet, the French keep bragging about having prevented the ghost ships from circulating. So now Putin is eating popcorn. Oil prices have risen, and he can fund his war as he pleases, when he pleases, for as long as necessary. As long as the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz lasts, the other guy is getting mountains of money.
In fact, the economic and geopolitical question related to Trump's war, the new war if you call it that, for me, it will overshadow, it will cover everything. It will overshadow everything, and we are only at the very beginning. I was watching the former economic head of the IMF, International Monetary Fund, Olivier Blanchard, who did his calculations on the outlook for the price increase. We are only at the beginning of the increase in international energy prices, at the very beginning, in fact. So the repercussions, as you say, are going to be terrible. That means we are going to have massive inflation, and we will face unemployment and a reduction in purchasing power.